Hi, friends, and welcome to Could Be Worse, a comedic literary analysis of dystopian novels. Because of the materials we cover, we often talk about intense or upsetting subject matter. This week, topics of note include eating disorders, body dysmorphia, plastic surgery, body shaming, and nonconsensual surgery. And, as always, we just curse up a golden storm, so's we do. We encourage you to interact with that subject matter in whatever way is healthiest for you. Enjoy the show!
Sky smoky overhead, all your friends are dead, and your government heads despise you. Members of the church criticize you. Aliens annexed your country. When the rats or the plague or the bread or the circus or the prevailing lack of a meaningful purpose, if injustice or sadness or robots feel like a curse. Books never let you forget. It could be worse.
Hey, Bridget.
Hey, Caitlin.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm
glad.
It's very, so in case our dearest listeners haven't gathered, it's we live in Washington.
That should be wildly abundantly clear.
Yeah, God's own country. And it's so warm, and I'm kind of disappointed about it.
Yeah, it's been like, not to be a 45-year-old fisherman, but it's been unseasonably warm this season.
I know. It's going to throw all the crops off.
Yeah. Oh my God. Already my backyard garden is a source of concern. We had a mason bee wake up today.
What is that?
A mason bee?
Yeah.
It's a bee that you can keep that doesn't really sting. I don't think. I guess I don't really know that much about, but we have them. They are pollinators. They do not make honey. They're called mason bees because they make little mud packs and find little areas where they can like crawl in and lay eggs, and then they seal it up with mud. A lot of people will have these kind of like cardboard tubes that they just like have a little house with like a little bee house with a bunch of cardboard tubes in it, and they'll crawl in there and like seal it on up. And then when it gets warm enough, the eggs will hatch, and then they'll just like bust out through the mud. And they're cute little buddies.
A bunch of dirty girls.
Bunch of dirty mud girls. Bunch of dirt queens. So
Bunch of dirt queens.
So we have a bunch of them, and I don't really know how it got inside, but one of them like woke up, busted out, and then was just like, well, I'm a bee and I will stop moving in the cold, and I feel a burst of warm air from this house, so I'm gonna go inside this house. So we found this like real slow moving little bee friend this morning, but there's nothing for her. There ain't no tasty treats for her to harvest. And so we're just a little bit worried about our bees, Bridget.
This is the quaintest problem. I mean, it's a serious issue.
Yeah, no,
bee
but
populations, I'm just saying the fact that it's like, oh, what are we going to do about our bees?
Yeah, look, I am the dirtbags Beatrice Potter, with significantly less drawing skills, and that's fine. That's fine.
Stand in your truth. Accept your talents.
I
think, hey, Caitlin, I think it's fine if you aren't particularly good at drawing.
I can draw a little fat bird, but only because I like drawing them so much. Could not draw a mouse to save my life, probably. I can draw little poof balls and then call it a mouse, but...
I used to draw, a big thing I would draw in the margins of my French notes in high school was a little cartoon mouse with little citrus ears, because he was a pamplemousse.
Oh, it's cute. Oh, it's cute, Bridget. Let's say right now, top 5 doodles that you always went back to throughout high school. Go.
Okay, pamplemousse, swirls just all over the GD page.
Well, in the program, that would have gotten your mind erased, but cool.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's like, I do like little blobby like ink things so that I just have stuff to color in.
Okay, all right.
There's like a little cartoon skull fella
Oh, precious.
that I would do, but then I'd put like little crossbones behind it. But he was a friendly skull and crossbones.
Little smiley skella friend.
And then a flower with just like infinite layered petals. I just keep going.
Oh, shit. We talking some, like, seventh chakra kind of vibes?
A mix between that and like a flower that you would see on something in the Limited 2.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. All right, what are your top 5 dudes?
Okay, so, first of all, it depends on, like, what age we're talking, but if we're talking, like, 16 and up, let's go with that one, because way funnier to make fun of.
Sixth place, by the way. Just random manga-style eyes.
Oh my god, totally on mine. Mine weren't manga style, but absolutely eyes all over the goddamn place. It looked like biblical descriptions of angels all up on my math homework. So let's just like clock that in at number 1 as eyes. Secondly, a book lying open, because I was taught how to draw that very early on, so that was just an easy doodle to do. Let me see what else. The Coheed and Cambria symbol all the time. Not even, they were like a top band for me in high school because of fucking course they were, but also that is just a fun little doodle.
I have to look this up because I did not listen to Coheed and Cambria in high school.
It's like a triangle with just like a magical little of circles. Oh shit, I didn't turn my phone off.
Oh no. By the way, there's a girl who went to my high school, speaking of band logos, real quick, who, I don't think I'm friends with her on Facebook anymore, but I remember seeing a post and I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. She has, on her body, of different sizes, 3 of the same 311 tattoo. It's a band.
No,
Yeah.
Come on. Don't act like I don't know who 311 is. It's just that that's a lot to take in.
And there was one on her ankle, I think one on her upper arm, and one on her lower back. And it's all the same logo. It's not like different styles. It's like the oval with the 311 in it, and one of the ones is coming out of the logo.
I cannot process this. I feel very upset right now. This is the new worst tattoo I'm aware of. Previously, this was held by someone that I met in high school who, like, she had just turned 18 and she got a tattoo immediately. And what she got was in a light blue. You know the Boondock Saints?
Yeah.
Like the Equitas and Veritas. She got like those on her feet, like one on each foot. And then she like came up to me, my friend was like, yeah, I just got these. It's Equitas and Veritas, and they're Greek gods, and they're like twins. And I was like, no, they're not. It's equality and truth in Latin, and it's from a film that we have seen and you have not, because I like knew this. It was just like bananas. That lie is permanently on your body, madam.
I think that's kind of putting the cart before the horse, because now now that she knows that she had to get really into the film.
Here's the thing. Probably not, though, you know?
It's so easy, though. You can at least pretend. I mean, Spencer's Gift sells enough merch.
Which is worse, though? Like, permanently being tattooed with this dumb tattoo, or having to pretend that you love the Boondock Saints your entire life. You know what I mean? Like, you can't ever just act.
You did say she got it in light blue, though, right?
Yeah.
See, you don't upkeep with that, and you can tell people, I just have a weird vein pattern on my feet. Why you gotta make me feel self-conscious about it?
What? I don't know if you could get away with that, per se.
You have enough confidence, you can get away with pretty much anything.
Well, this girl had plenty of confidence. I'm going to return to my doodles because I can't think about these two women with their terrible tattoos any longer. So I have my big soulful eyes. I've got my open book. I've got Coheed and Cambria. I think directly after this would probably be like a candle burning with like little wax strips. That's always fun. And this is dipping a little bit back into junior high, but I used to make really terrible comics because I got bored in class a lot. And there was this super villain that was a cow. Her name was Daisy. And I continue to draw her a lot just because she was a bunch of fun, goofy shapes. So those are my top 5.
Now you know our top 5 doodles. Maybe we will show them to you on our Facebook page or our Instagram. Or our Twitter.
For Instagram, if I may say.
Yeah.
Shall we? Oh, we should mention this Could Be Worse, a comedic literary podcast. I know that we have the content warning at the top, but I still feel like I need to let you know that we are going to talk about a book because we do talk about not books for some time at the top of every one. And this time we have a pretty popular one, I would say.
Yeah, this is, I want to say, is this getting made into a movie soon? I feel like I've seen that. I think it's in development hell.
Yeah,
is what the kids say.
Fair.
Is what the kids call it.
But I do believe you are correct. It is Uglies by Scott Westerfeld.
By the way, I know, because I worked in a bookstore, that this book sometimes appears on required reading lists.
Okay.
It's not bad. It's just puzzling.
No. I'm just saying, I want to talk about that. We should probably let everyone know what this book is about first.
Okay, yes.
And summary time, go! Uglies by Scott Westerfeld follows protagonist Tally Youngblood, a teenager in a future society where citizens are given plastic surgery at age 16 by the government to become pretties. The idea being that in a society where everyone is beautiful, discrimination and negative competition go away, creating a loving and peaceful society. We meet Tally in the months before her 16th birthday. All of her friends have left Uglyville, where the young people live in dorms and attend school, and are partying in Pretty Town without her until she is able to get her surgery on her birthday. Determined to see her best friend Paris, Tally sneaks across the river into Pretty Town to see him and is gently told not to come back until her surgery. During her escape back to Uglyville, she meets another Ugly who has snuck over to see her friends, a girl named Shay who shares her birthday. Tally is thrilled to have a friend again, and especially excited that they will get their surgeries at the same time, meaning she won't find herself lonely again. Tally and Shay spend the intervening months pulling pranks, a common pastime among Uglies, and Shay teaches her how to ride a hoverboard. As Tally grows to be a competent hoverboarder, Shay invites her to board out of town with her and visit the ruins of an old city left over from the time of the Rusties, the environmentally wasteful society that came before. Hey reader, it's us, how's it going? Tally comes along and they begin exploring the city at night, riding the rickety skeletons of an old roller coaster on their boards as Shay looks for a friend of hers named David who lives outside their pretty centric society. Tally doesn't believe that David is real, chalking it up to part of the eccentric side of Shay, who voices resentment about being labeled ugly in her natural state, questions the system they were raised in, and refuses to speculate about what she will look like after the operation. As their birthday grows nearer, Shay tells Tally that she's going to run away to where David lives, where her own friends before Tally ran away to, a place called The Smoke. She asks Tally to go, but Tally refuses, preferring to become a pretty and see her own friends again. Shay disappears into the night. When Tally's birthday finally arrives, she is alarmed when, instead of going into surgery, she is sent to a severe group of enforcement officials known as Special Circumstances, headed by a woman named Dr. Cable. Cable asks her to tell her where Shay went. Tally refuses to help until Cable threatens to never let her get the operation to turn her pretty. Imagining a life of exile in her own community, Tally agrees to follow the cryptic instructions Shay left her and sets out on her hoverboard to find the smoke, carrying a necklace with a tracking device to alert Dr. Cable as to when she finds the smoke. After an arduous journey of freezing temperatures, fire, plummeting heights, and freeze-dried spaghetti, she finds herself in the smoke, a community of people living in the woods, growing and hunting their own food, and staying off the grid and out of sight of Tally's society. She's reunited with Shay and meets David, a boy their age who was born in the smoke. Unable to immediately set off the device when she sees her friend's happiness here, Shay finds it harder and harder to fulfill her duties set by special circumstances and turn in her friends, even as she experiences the hard work and sacrifice of life in the smoke. She grows closer with David to the chagrin of her friend Shay and is brought to meet his parents, 2 doctors from her own city who fled when they discovered that part of the operation to become pretty involved getting an implant in your brain that made you more vapid and easily controlled. Tally decides to stay and destroys the tracking necklace, unaware that destroying it was also a way to trigger it. She wakes the next morning to the smoke under attack and watches her friends be taken into custody. Only she and David escape. Unable to make herself confess her part in the destruction of his home, Tally promises David they will get everyone back, and they set off back to her city. Once there, they break into special circumstances and save everyone from the smoke that they can, though they discover that David's father has been killed and Shay has already been turned into a pretty. This chapter of the series comes to a close as David's mother discovers a potential cure for the intellectual effects of the pretty surgery, and Tally realizes she has to become a pretty to test the cure and atone for her role in the destruction of the smoke. So that's what the book's about. I'm going to head this conversation right the fuck off and say, I really liked this book.
Yeah, no, it's a good book.
Yeah. So what you were saying about it being on required reading lists, kind of good. I'm glad. You know?
Okay, yeah,
there?
no, by the way, I was sorry. I was really quickly looking up. There's been no news about film stuff since last September, but the film has been in the works since 2011.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, this book came out before Hunger Games did, which I think really, like, whetted America's appetite for teen dystopia. And so the fact that this isn't a movie already is sort of stunning to me, because I really love the Hunger Games series. I sort of think this one is, like, a little more emotionally mature. Is that crazy?
No, because it does partially tie into... It's briefly suggested, and I did write this down in my notes, that one of the reasons why, other than making people docile, that the reason why the surgery was created was because of mental illness and how people perceived themselves and how that caused a lot of problems.
Can I sort of... That sort of brings me into, like, my second biggest critique, I guess, of the book, which it's sort of inescapable, especially with YA dystopia. But there's this inescapable element of this kind of story, which is this wide-eyed explanation of the the audience's more quotidian horrors. So like that moment where they're talking about racism and they're like, people cared about skin color. Can you imagine? Which, like, obviously, Scott, I can imagine that, because we both of us live in this world, Scott. And we definitely get, like, specifically that example here. But there is a fundamental misunderstanding of anorexia they kind of seems apparent to me, which, when it's a book that's basically about socially enforced body dysmorphia, feels really weird. Can I find that quote real quick?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on
190.
190, yeah.
Yeah.
Or 199 is when they talk about the model who's found in the magazine.
We might have
and they're like,
copies.
how is she so skinny? Why is she so skinny? And it's like, oh, she must be
Okay,
a
here it is.
PSA about disease.
Here's the thing. So I'll just start from the beginning of the page. They're looking at a model who's in an old magazine from like our times. So I'm just going to read the full fucking page, so buckle in.
Click, click.
The woman looked like she was starving, her ribs thrusting out from her sides, her legs so thin that Tally wondered how they didn't snap under her weight. Her elbows and pelvic bones looked sharp as needles, but there she was, smiling and proudly bearing her body, as if she'd just had the operation and didn't realize they'd sucked out way too much fat. The funny thing was, her face was closer to being pretty than any of the rest. She had the big eyes, smooth skin, and small nose, but her cheekbones were too tight, the skull practically visible beneath her flesh. What on earth is she? A model. Which is what? Kind of like a professional pretty. I guess when everyone else is ugly, being pretty is sort of like your job. And she's in her underwear because Tally began, and then a memory flashed into her mind. She's got that disease, the one the teachers always told us about. Probably. I always thought they made that up to scare us. Back in the days before the operation, Tally remembered, a lot of people, especially young girls, became so ashamed at being fat that they stopped eating. They'd lose weight too quickly, and some would get stuck and would keep losing weight until they wound up like this model. Some even died, they said at school. That was one of the reasons they'd come up with the operation. No one got the disease anymore, since everyone knew at 16 they'd turn beautiful. In fact, most people pigged out just before they turned, knowing it would all be sucked away. Okay. So, have some thoughts about that.
Yeah, this is, it's...
Body dysmorphia, which is at the root of anorexia. Like,
yeah.
It's like a compulsion and not dependent on like, oh, well, this reasonable and attainable goal is like within my sights, so I'll just relax about it. Like, that's not what it is. It's like...
I know I'll be perfect one day, so who cares?
Well, it's like, because actual anorexia, like, is not dependent on, like, what you actually look like. Your brain cannot actually perceive, like, the reality of your appearance and your health level. And even if you, like, know, hey, I'm actually at a healthy weight, you can't stop yourself. It's a mental illness. It's a health issue that needs treatment. It's not like it's exacerbated by social pressures, certainly, because your psychology is a thing that has health, and there are things that can like make you unhealthy psychologically the same way that there are things that can make you physically unhealthy. But it doesn't go away like that. And also, when they're describing like people totally pig out knowing it'll get sucked away, that's just a version of binging and purging, which is also a like eating disorder.
I don't know if you had the first they give you the first like chapter of the next book, The Pretties, at the end. Did you get that?
No, the one that I had is newer, and so they kind of like, I mean, they have the names of all of the books in the series across the top, and just the one that you're on is highlighted. And then the one at the back is, I think, the beginning of a new series.
Oh,
so
okay.
I didn't get the beginning of The Pretties. But
I got
think we should
beginning of
definitely
Pretties, and there is a part in that where you do see that they do, like, even once, end of the story, Tally becomes pretty. Spoilers, if you haven't read the book, sorry.
Or if you didn't listen to the summary.
Yeah, if you didn't listen to the summary. So she becomes pretty, and the book picks up, the next book picks up with her and Shay, and Tally is super hungover, and Shay brings up all this food, and she's like, oh man, that's too much food even for the little packets of calorie burners that we have. So basically, people still do the binge and purge once they're pretty, but they have this, like, chemical powder that I'm assuming just does something gross. It's very grotesque when you think about it, especially when you think about, like, the chemical injectors that the parents use to melt the plastic out of their faces.
Yeah. Or it's just straight up, like, fucking cocaine or some shit.
Yeah, cocaine or laxatives. But they're, like, eating, like, omelets and lobster and caviar and, like, Bloody Marys, which sounds Amazing. At one point, I will say I was like, ooh, that sounds delicious. Because Tally says that the Bloody Mary isn't salty enough. So Shay pops a bunch of caviar in and she's like, there you go.
Damn.
I want to try that.
Ugh. Fucking.
Get me David Chang on the phone real quick. I have an idea. He is obsessed with caviar.
I don't know who that is.
He is a celebrity chef. He's the founder of Momofuku.
Oh, that's a name I've heard before.
Yeah.
On the internet.
I'm very excited. He has a new show coming out called Ugly Delicious on Netflix.
But
yeah, anyway.
Basically, I think, so, like, obviously there's more going on around, like, it's not necessarily perspective that's even coming from a society that has, like, anything close to a healthy grasp on appearance or weight management or health management or psychological health in any way. But, like, I feel like there's a way that, like, this society could have framed anorexia in a way that, like, addresses the fullness of, like, I recognize that he's trying to balance, like, hey, there are bad things in our society, but, like, remember, this is a dystopia. But, like, I think that putting that super simplistic view of our society's problems forward to a teen audience is, like, a little minimizing and, like, could be harmful to a teen with an eating disorder who read that particular section. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all. That was, like, one of my big, like, sticking points. It's actually the only thing in the book that I felt like I really needed to, like, actually take a note about. I feel like I really dominated the immediate post-summary conversation.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
I do want to say, so this kind of connects a little bit. I thought this was interesting, is the food. At one point, Tally points out that she's like, killing animals, that's disgusting and horrible. And that, like, everything that she's been eating up to that point is soy waste.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating because of the food that they describe both in, like, the ready meal packets, but then also in the next book that they're describing, which means they have mastered flavor replication.
Yeah,
because it's a lobster made of soy material, and it looks like a lobster, and it tastes like a lobster, and that is...
Here's the thing. Would she actually know the difference?
That is a good point.
Yeah. I mean, getting it in a appealing lobster shape alone is impressive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just saying, like, if you mushed tempeh into a lobster shape, I would not be like, hell yeah.
Tempeh's good at one thing and one thing only, and that's being smothered in barbecue sauce.
Yeah. Or buffalo sauce.
Buffalo sauce. Really, any, like, pungent sauce that's
something
red.
with, like, a sharp flavor to it. You're really getting into the best things for tempeh. But I will also say that is such a fucking early 2000s health food to choose. You know what I mean? Like,
soy.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, you can't really have a lot of soy. People are realizing that.
Plant estrogens are bad for you, actually, dystopian future, so...
If you have too many and you depend on that, you might develop an intolerance for it, actually.
And also, like, maybe if this, like, culture is super, super... I don't know, environmentally minded, they wouldn't, like, base their entire shit on, like, a monocrop. That's all I'm saying. Like, that's all I'm saying. It's fine.
Oh, speaking of monocrops, the orchids. Yeah. There was something that bothered me about the orchids, which was that they were like, oh, the orchids will never take over this space. It's an old growth forest. And I'm like, that's profoundly not true.
Yeah, like...
Hey, English ivy, blackberry bushes.
Oh my god, blackberry. Here's the thing. Especially because this is pretty clearly on the West Coast.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because, like, she's like, you would have been halfway to Alaska by now. So I'm guessing this is Northern California?
I was gonna say that her city is probably in California, like, and then the smoke is probably in Washington.
Yeah.
Maybe even potentially Canada.
Yeah. Is the smokes Olympia? Could be.
Oh my god, I'd love it. I'd love it. And it would continue the whole thing about, like, teen novels being set in Washington. But I am going to say a thing right now, which is that if it is set on the West Coast, fuck you, because we do have blackberries, and California fucking has kudzu. And there are so many examples of, like, old growth or just, like,
English
established...
ivy. English ivy is strangling most Pacific Northwest forests. I have personally been on, like, 5 different trips where you go out into the forest and you just rip English ivy out the ground off the trees.
Yeah, like, to set this story in this area, like this coastal area, and, like, not acknowledge, like, hey, it's not like old growth isn't like Fern Gully magic that keeps invasive species out, my dude. Any hoodle.
I just that bit of bad science bothered me.
Here's a thing that is like a combination of a compliment and a complaint, which if I said it to a person, a compliment or a I guess backhanded compliment might be
compliment.
Yeah, compliment. I was really, really enjoying for so much of the book that it's like there was, for huge swaths of the book, it's just like girls hanging out, doing extreme sports, enjoying nature, doing fun pranks, it just being about friendship and, like, experiencing friendship and being full-rounded characters who, like, their complaints with each other come from deep ideological differences. And it was really, really awesome. And then, kind of for no reason, both of them are in love with David, and it's tearing them apart. If Shay and Tally's big split had been because Shay was suspicious from the beginning, that would have been so much better to me than, like, oh, the boy that I like likes you, and I'm already mad at you, and the anger that I already feel towards you makes me more suspicious of you. And then my anger is just confirmed by finding out that you're responsible for people's deaths and the destruction of an entire, settlement. But, like, Tally is really interesting. Shay is 80% as interesting as Tally. I don't get David. And I think that David is this symptom of a thing in teen literature where a girl is attracted to a guy because he represents a life that she wants.
Yeah, I've noticed that in young adult teen novels, so less so now. Mm-hmm. Now, it's becoming more of a trend that it's not necessary, but when this was written, which was, 2006?
Yeah, it was definitely 2006. Excellent guess.
In order to, like, even if in the first draft that you sent to your editor, you were like, no romance, they probably made you put a romance in.
Because
it feels very, like, sudden and unnecessary.
But here's the thing, I think it was probably, maybe Shay's attraction to David was, like, built in later, so, like, the love triangle thing I could see being kind of manufactured, but I think that Tally's attraction to David was always supposed to be there because it's sort of how she starts to give up on the idea of, like, pretty being desirable. You know what I mean?
She's like, oh, he's handsome, but I don't know why, because he's ugly.
Kind of. I mean, because she starts to feel affection for what his face signifies in terms of his individuality. And then that makes her realize, like, I would be really upset if you were turned pretty and I never got to see your face again. And, like, I think that specific realization was always going to be tied to, like, a romantic attraction. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it is indicative of the time period that there's always a romance.
It is, but I think that, like, even in books where it makes more sense for there to be a romance, or at the very least, more sense for there to be, like, a love triangle. I don't know. But, like...
I will say the love triangle
for
is
example,
very heavy-handed.
Weak as hell. But, like... So I'm gonna rope in two related texts, one of which is not a teen novel, but it really illustrates my point. So, like, when I read Twilight, my mom read Twilight because I had the book, and she was just like, "Oh, I've heard about this. I'll check it out." And we had this conversation about it, where what's compelling about Edward and, like, what he represents to Bella initially is not at all his personality, because his personality is weak as fuck. He has, like, a couple good lines in the book, but his personality remains a bullshit. But, like, something that Stephanie Meyer is really good at, which I think that we talked about a little bit when we did The Host, is, like, she is really good at tapping into the teen thing of, like, wanting a community. And
yeah,
so, like,
and Edward's family, super cool.
Yeah, like, that's just, and he has, like, a cool house, and they have money, and, like, money's always been a worry for Bella, and she doesn't make friends easily, and so there's this guy who, like, loves her in a way that's, like, kind of independent of anything she could actually do. You know what I mean? And, like, he comes with stability and in both, like, financial and social
He comes with all this cool stuff. And he's like, and guess what, babe? All you have to bring to the table? You.
Yeah. And not even, like, you don't even have to behave particularly well. It's just, like, you just have to keep existing and I will love you. And I will bring you this lifestyle that you would like, that you as this, like, sort of rudderless character have no idea how you would achieve.
Which, frankly, don't we all want that? Someone out there to say, hey, you keep being you. Here's a bunch of money and friends.
Totally.
Just do what you want. Like, I love you.
And, like, as a teen, most of the time, like, you define yourself and your friends by what you consume. Like, you're friends with people who like the same kind of music as you, or you all like to watch the same movies together. Or, like, you like, teenagedom is such a time of conspicuous consumption and tribalism that's based around that. And so, like, Bella, her one character trait is that she likes reading. And, like, she doesn't like people, she likes books. And frankly, that's just, like, framing her entirely, her personality, as, like, a consumer of things. And so, like, she is just positioned to consume two different lifestyles, one of which is Edward and one of which is Jacob. And, like, it just represents two different kinds of lives. And now I'm going to bring in the non-teen book that is related to Twilight. People have brought up a very specific point about 50 Shades of Grey that is super fucking true.
A Twilight fanfic.
Which is that entire premise only works if he's super fucking rich.
Yeah.
Because he represents a lifestyle. And I think it's also true if you look at Hunger Games, where, like, the two different dudes represent two different lifestyles, kind of, which, like, Gale represents, like, a specific sort of family-oriented thing, and a rebellious thing, but also just, like, this really bloodthirsty, like, fighter attitude. And then Peeta is like, hey, we have similar experiences, and I'm a very, like, emotional person who, like, is attentive to your needs and you having like denied yourself in service to your family so much, like that is appealing. Like I think that is true. And so and some books do a better job than others of like having that dude who represents a thing have a personality. And I think something that this book does really well is that she does have two dudes who represent different lifestyles. And initially, it's not even two dudes, it's Shay and Paris represent the two different lifestyles. But then it shifts and it's David and like Paris again. And Paris is a friend, and that's a really good way of like sort of shifting that dynamic where it's not choosing between two love interests. But the characterization of David is so weak that it just totally pulls even the thin veil off of that dynamic, where the reason that she seems to like David so much is because he represents authenticity. But there's not a lot to his personality, and he makes choices that don't make a lot of sense, and he's not that bright.
No, yeah,
like,
because he's like, there's a point when she's lying about the the handcuffs, the zip ties. So badly. I lied better as a 2-year-old. It's so bad, and he's like, oh, well, all right.
Literally,
love you.
all she would have had to say is like, oh, it's all a blur. I don't really know. You know what I mean? But she was just like, oh, they must have done it. I don't know how.
I was
like,
suffering a lot of smoke inhalation, so
it was just.
It was a very hard time. I'd rather not talk about it. There you go. Just do the I'd rather not talk about it. Quick look away. Make sure your hair falls over your face. You're golden.
Look traumatized. Maybe a lip quiver.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Lie better, Tally. But, like, so he's dumb, and he, like, shouldn't have trusted her right away the way he should have been more suspicious of the fact that she was completely different. And also the like, trope of people falling in love with people just because they're unlike other people that they have previously met is so dumb.
I've so dumb.
A ton of people.
It's not untrue when you're a teen.
Nope, because I've met I've met very unique people, like people unlike anyone else that I had previously known in high school. And I was like, no, thank you. Like, not even because they were dicks, but just because, like, well, you're fucking weird. This is bizarre.
I've had other experiences. I made a lot of bad choices with my crushes, Caitlin.
Look, me too, but only because
I did into college.
Look, my problem is that I've, like, met quantifiable dicks and been like, hey, what's up? But, like, unquantifiable weirdos, not so much. They're a deviation from the norm in such a, like, you aren't attracted just to the deviation from the norm.
No.
That's entirely why he likes Tally, is because she is different, not because she's has other traits. Which, okay, that's not totally fair.
Well, she sold herself with her lies as someone who's, like, really brave and tough.
Yeah, but, like, she's not like that in person. You know what? Like, look at the difference between what someone is saying and what someone is doing, David.
I will say she's very game to just, like, it's weird because I guess she's, like, trying to sell her lie, but she is very game to, like, just take the saw, and she's like, yeah, I'll cut up this tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that. It's hard. Cool, I'll do it.
But also that shows, like, an inconstant morality, because she doesn't want to cut up the tree in the first place. And then when she's annoyed with it, she's like, yeah, fuck it. And, like, if they just, like, leaned into that, because she is kind of a, like, yeah, I'm up for she's up for goofs, she's up for tricks, she's up for shenanigans. She has sort of a hilarious reactionary personality, which I'm about. Because of the culture she was raised in, she's real quick to be like, look at this mug, am I right? Like, she would be a totally fun person to hang out with. But, like, that's not necessarily why David says that he's, like, about it. Anyway, that was another critique. Also, there's this whole section where they're, like, traveling from where the smoke used to be down back to Tally's city, to the Rusty Ruins. And there's this whole section where I was like, that could have been a scene where they get in a fight and they don't talk for a while.
And we don't find out about what the fight was about.
Yeah. And like neither of them have strong enough personalities at each other where it makes sense for them to have gotten into a fight. I don't know why that was included if it wasn't going to be like used for character development. Especially because at that time she has such a complicated relationship with her guilt for fucking his life up, that for them to like get in an argument so bad that David won't talk to her, and for her to feel self-righteous enough to like yell or get riled in such a way that David
walks out into a storm and stands out in it.
Yeah, like that would have been a really interesting moment. And I don't, like, it's just so inexplicable that it exists and the way in which it exists. I'm like kind of mad we don't get it.
Yeah, I would want it even if it was just like, I think we should continue on. Well, I think that we should camp for the night.
Yeah.
That's
totally.
that's an argument that people have in stories like this, and it's okay to have them have it.
Yeah. And it would also like I know exactly when you say that, like, David would want to continue on. And
because every second lost is a second that, like, people are in more danger, as opposed to Tally would be like, let's think about this rationally.
Well, but also, here's the thing. I said that it would be really obvious initially, but I can actually see, like, two different reasons that both do two different things for their characters. So in one scenario, David wants to keep moving because every second is a second that his parents could be being killed. And Tally wants to, like, take it easy because, like, every second brings them closer to, like, David maybe finding out that she betrayed his entire life. So, like, that would be one thing that would do specific things for their characters. Or Tally wants to hurry up and fix her mistake, so she's becoming reckless, and David gets upset and is like, we're the only people who can help them. We have to be responsible about this. Also, you're the only person I have left, so don't endanger yourself, which would do an entirely different thing. And both of those would, like, increase the emotional impact of everything that happens next. But to just say that they had a fight does nothing. And so these are my complaints. Apart from that, I'd be super into talking about more great things about the book if you don't have any further grudges.
I mean, Tally Youngblood is the most, like, YA name ever created.
Here's the thing. Is it a YA name, or is it secretly a like, Brian Jack's Redwall name?
It's...
Tell me that Tally Youngblood is not full on the name of a squirrel who lives outside of Redwall.
It is, but it's also, someone having, like, it's the 8th draft version of the first draft of Enemy, Dementia, Darkness, Raven Way. Did I get that in the right order? I think I did.
Who fucking knows, you know? Oh man, quick aside, did you know that the person who wrote that is, like, writing a book about why they wrote it?
Yeah, there's been like all this stuff. I'll read something one month about, like, who that person actually is, and then it turns out it's not that person, but then it is that.
Well, there's someone who's, like, got a book on a publishing schedule who's like, it's totally me. I have evidence it was me that I showed the publishing company. And they, like, are down with me writing this fucking memoir of writing the worst fan fiction ever.
Which is such, like, a weird...
We should quantify what we're talking about.
Yeah. Oh my god, I just forgot. Oh, My Immortal. We're talking about My Immortal. It's such a weird...
A Hot Topic branded Harry Potter fan fiction.
Yeah. It's such a weirdly... like, narrow cultural touchstone for so many people, but it's like you had to be in middle/high school during the specific time and hang out in certain friend groups.
Yeah. And places on the internet.
And places on the internet. Well, your friends, even if, like, you didn't go to those places, your friends told you about those places.
Totally.
But it's just so... Because I've made reference to it to people who, like, are in that age group, and I would think would be it, and they don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's this really limited cultural touchstone that if you're even, like, 2 years out of it, it's not gonna make a lot of sense.
I, like, was aware of it and, like, read a little bit of it and was like, oh, I can't deal with this. Haha, isn't this a funny thing for a very narrow group of my friends to talk about? And then completely forgot about it. And then our mutual friend, Ryland, a few years ago introduced me to it again. And I was like, why is this familiar? Oh my God, I did not know this was, like, a global phenom.
Yeah, in college, freshman year of college, Ryland, myself, and our friend Lex did attempt to try to figure out how to write a My Immortal musical.
Holy shit.
And we did, there somewhere in, like, probably between us, I think we have, like, the acts mapped out.
Fuck, man.
Yeah. Giving away all my good ideas on this podcast. TM. I already sent myself all the information. So,
I mean, those files, those outlines, I'm sure are marked with dates.
yeah.
P.S. to listeners, follow at Ryland Duncan on Twitter because it is a treat and a dream. He's such a good Twitter boy.
He's extremely good. He did have he had an incident with a very agreeable and good Star Wars tweet about The Last Jedi that made him miserable because he got over, what was it, like over 2,000 retweets?
Yeah.
And over like 100 responses telling him why he was wrong.
Yeah, just so many. Anyway, we should get back to talking about the book.
Yeah.
But shout out to Ryland for being good at Twitter.
And shout out to My Immortal for being such an icon.
That one's just from Bridget. Anyway.
Not cosines.
Yeah. But yeah, otherwise, this book is fucking fun as hell. Like, I want a hoverboard more than anything now.
Especially, it's collapsible.
Yeah, everything about it is cool. Everything about the hoverboard is cool. I cannot wait for the movie to come out and it basically just be like Blue Crush 3. This time we're on land and everything about the world is bad. Like, you know what I mean?
The crash
Like,
bracelets and the fact that, like, you wear a crash bracelet and then, like, your training wheel is a cool belly button ring.
Brink 2, extreme cosmetic surgery. This is what we're talking about.
It's
like,
and like she does like a fucking like paragliding suit using her poncho.
So cool.
It's very extreme stunts.
And like this movie it's gonna be like fucking I'm trying to think of like a badass surfing movie that's not Blue Crush because I already meant fuck it. Blue Crush, iconic queer movie Blue Crush, mixed with, what's it called? Reese Witherspoon does the Pacific Coast Trail.
Oh.
Wild.
Okay.
Because all the thing is she's doing these crazy fucking badass sci-fi stunts in the middle of like glorious wilderness and awesome ruins and shit. I can't even deal. That's gonna look so cool. And it was so fun to read and like picture.
And you know they're gonna film it in British Columbia.
Totally.
Also,
so I have a question.
Yeah.
I feel like Tally, it should definitely be cast as a person of color.
Oh no, she's described as a person of color. So I did want to bring this up. She's described, both her and Shay are people of color.
Yeah, which like, when does that happen? I do think that they could be a little more explicit about it because every single time that those characters are described, I was like, yeah, if this movie has either of these two people cast as a white girl, it will be shame upon the House of Hollywood. But like,
I will say, like, once Shay is pretty, I'm like, oh, so like a weird alien looking Jamila Jamil.
huh.
You okay, buddy?
Sorry, I'm just I was creeped out because I don't think that there's any way that anyone could make her look more beautiful, and trying to imagine an alien version of her was deeply upsetting.
By the way, when I think of like how the pretties look, I'm gonna be honest, it's gonna be a little bit like what how have you seen, I don't know if it's even released yet, the trailer for Battle Angel Aelita?
I have seen that trailer. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I agree.
I was supposed to be in that movie. I was supposed to be an
What?
extra, and they kept rescheduling and rescheduling and rescheduling me because they just...
Was that when you were in Atlanta?
It was in Austin because Robert
really?
Rodriguez is a good hometown boy and films all of his stuff in Texas because he has loyalty, even though they definitely reduced the tax breaks that you get for filming in Texas.
Yeah. Well,
Everybody's going to New Mexico now if they need some desert scenes.
Ugh, whatever.
But yeah, what's bothersome about this, by the way, why I wanted to bring up that both Shay and Tally should be people of color, the cover of my book has some Taylor Swift-looking girl peeking out of some aloe.
What the fuck?
Yeah, she's super white. She's
There
got like
isn't even
blue
a white
eyes
girl
and like
in this book.
sandy blonde hair, and she's just super white, and it's not. I'm like, that's literally no one described in this book.
Yeah. That's obnoxious as hell. I will say one thing, which is, it's going back to a compliment. Ugh, I think I said that wrong, but I am annoyed that the plot found a way to have Tally have to become pretty. I am pretty annoyed at that. I know they can reverse it, but it's obnoxious to me.
I will tell you, so you did not, I got the sneak peek as we discussed before. God, the slang they use as pretties is so goofy.
I mean, the worst thing about this entire book, I know I've said some complaints, but the worst thing is the fact that kids are called littlies, right?
They add like little suffixes, I guess, to people's names. So Shay becomes Shayla and Tally becomes Tallywa. Like, as like a fun little playful thing.
Stupid. Tallywa?
Yeah.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I know it's supposed to be dumb, but come on.
They're also, so spoilers for pretties, they're trying to be inducted into a gang of sorts. That
Can you tell me if this is for sure a gang or if it is more a sorority?
It's kind of like a Greek row thing where they're the ones who pull a lot of pranks and stunts, tricks.
Can I say I do sort of love that this is a real prank-based social economy, like the entirety of the book. Like people who pull more pranks when they're ugly get like cooler jobs later on.
Yeah, but they're called.
So I'm delighted.
The gang is called the Crims.
Ugh, God, fine.
And also, they. I will tell you, they did. Shay does something real dumb, where she gets a cosmetic surgery.
After she's become pretty?
Yeah, so you can get additional surgeries.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's, you know how like briefly when they're doing like the face makeover, she makes herself look like a weird cat person.
Oh no.
Not that extreme, but it's implied that Shay does a lot of these where they're like little augmenting surgeries.
I don't like it.
She gets little like reflective like ruby things put around her eyes. She gets 12 of them so it tells the time.
Fucking boo.
But when you look at her, it's backwards because it's so that she can see it in the mirror.
That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard
It's
of.
extremely dumb.
I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed, Bridget.
I'm sure we haven't read Pretties, but I'm sure that it gets more intense and gross. Kind of like, I don't know. There was a really bad Criminal Minds a couple weeks ago. Where this girl like was made herself have like you know like the people who do like the snake body mods and stuff.
I'm familiar.
She did that to like an extreme, and she was doing that to her victims.
Gross. No.
Where
that's my thing. I can't talk about it, Bridget. That's my like tap out for horror movies is when people do non-consensual surgery.
Yeah.
I can't do it. We're done talking about this Criminal Minds episode. That's super gross though.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's all good.
I remember sending you the trailer for, what was it, Tusk, which I still haven't seen.
Yeah, I can't take it. It makes me feel physically ill.
How do you feel about the Isle of Dr. Moreau?
I'm upset by it. I'm upset by it.
Okay, here's a young adult novel pick for anyone who did like the Isle of Dr. Moreau. There's a very good sort of retelling called The Isle of Dr. Frankenstein that is terrifying, but also very good.
I just want to like clarify a thing. I can like appreciate The Island of Dr. Moreau. It's like, especially in movies, like it ooks me out for sure in books, but I can handle it. But like for real, the trailer for Tusk made me feel as sick to my stomach as the trailer for Human Centipede. Maybe more because they linger on the fact that it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's all about whatever. I can't talk about it anymore. It's presented in a more
comedic tone.
Yeah, I just can't. I can't even articulate it because the longer I like sit and thinking about how I feel, the more I feel that way. But I will say quickly, weirdly, there's a horror movie called American Mary that I don't really have a problem with. And it's a pretty good horror movie.
Yeah, anyway, I feel like I've read.
Can we move on?
Yeah.
Can we? Okay, I'm sorry.
But once again, everyone, if you're interested, check out Isle of Dr. Frankenstein. I read it when I was in like 5th grade, and it stuck with me a lot. It lingers on the just how someone kind of processes and deals with stuff like that happening to them.
Yeah.
In a very surprisingly mature way for a book that's under 200 pages. Anyway, let's move on.
So all of that, yeah, I'm excited for a movie of this book. I think that we should keep reading the series. Like not in order on the podcast, but I think every once in a while we should treat ourselves to a book from this, because I really like it and I'm interested to see where it goes, unlike the program. The
programiverse.
Do you have anything else you would like to talk about the book before we go into segments?
I did like that everything was magnets.
Oh God, I loved that everything was magnets. I loved that everything was magnet. You were there. I bought myself and my family members magnets for Christmas because I was just like, always a good gift. Always love a magnet.
Couldn't pull you away.
Nope. I was picking the best magnets.
They were a little bit too magnetic.
That's the sound of my magnets, which I just picked up. Because yes, I probably in a bad move, I keep them quite near to my desk, which has a lot of electronics on it, but I just want to fiddle. Is that so bad? I like pushing them against each other when they don't want to connect.
I also had 2 other things. So, on 347, something truly gross happens. Not your kind of gross, more my kind of gross.
Hit me with it, Bridget. I'm going to make one more click as the magnets get put away.
Ooh.
Okay.
So they're purifying their food. This is her and David in the woods. She turned to take her egg sal, cupping its warmth in her hands, and saw how serious he looked. Egg salad shouldn't be warm.
Bridget, they couldn't help it.
It's so...
They're living in a forest.
No. You can make that with cold. You can rehydrate that with cold water. Why does it need to be warm?
Don't you have to use warm water to rehydrate stuff?
Probably, but like, why'd you make it egg salad?
Yeah.
There are so many. I've eaten a lot of MREs.
Well, I think it's because it's what they had. But I will say, what you could do, like in the morning, rehydrate it, put it in a little container, stick it in one of those ice cold mountain streams. It's chilled by lunchtime. You don't have to do this to yourselves. You can live better.
Just like the pioneers did.
Just because your house is made of trees instead of future magnets doesn't mean that you have to eat a hot egg salad.
Hot egg salad is abhorrent to me.
Fair. I think if we can agree on the biggest flaw in this book, apart from Littlies, it's probably hot egg salad.
Hot egg salad. I also don't love that the doctor, whose name I'm forgetting right now.
Maddie or Az?
Nope, neither one of them. Dr. C.
Oh, Dr. Cable.
Dr. Cable. Yeah, it bothers me when, and this is like sometimes it's a hallmark of like, authority figures are kind of just cruelly one note.
Yeah.
Like, she tells her, then just spend the rest of your life being ugly. And, like, she has sharp teeth, and she's terrifying. And she's just cruel for the sake of being cruel.
The sharp teeth were funny.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know why they had to give them sharp teeth.
I hope they keep that in the movie.
Yeah. Man.
Just a mouthful of razor blades and ridiculous, like wrong-looking cheekbones.
I'm very interested to see when they do make a movie, like, how they define, like, cruelly beautiful versus, like, new pretty versus middle pretty versus whatever the third one is. I've forgotten it. But antique pretty is not it, but it's what I've decided to call it. Just, like, pretty, but, like, with a kind of patina on it.
And then there's cruelly beautiful, and it's like...
And then there's the specials.
Yeah.
Have
there's different kind of specials, because there's like the rangers and like the wardens.
Yeah.
Who are like just like buff hot.
Yeah, I do like that there's apparently a fucking like swole surgery.
There's a surgery that just makes you look like Zarya from Overwatch, and sign me the fuck up.
Let's get beefy.
Yeah, I just don't like when... I like a villain with a little bit more dimension so that you can kind of see where they're coming from.
I see that. I also anticipate it maybe being more complicated the deeper into the series you go.
Oh, yeah. It'll pull a real... well, all young adult novels do that, because then it's like, oh, you thought you knew one thing, but then it was another.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a series off the top of my head, and I just can't. But I do so love that twist in books where you're like, oh, this person is a bad guy, and then they explain the thing, and you're like, I think we might be the baddies. Are we wrong in this situation?
Here's the thing. I don't think that, like, I think this is gonna just be like a real ends justify the means situation, and I can confidently say they don't. But I am interested to see more about, like, the rationale of the ruling class and more of the actual ruling class, because Dr. Cable still seems like more of an enforcer. So I'm very curious. He did a very good job of whetting the appetite for an entire series.
Because now you're like, I want to get to the tippy top.
Yeah.
Shall
we segment it?
Yeah, let's talk about science.
Okay, so this requires me to talk a little bit about something that's in the very front of the book because this is how I decided on what to do. So when you look at the very front of the book, it says, "This novel was shaped by a series of email exchanges between myself and Ted Chiang about his story, Liking What You See, a documentary. His input on the manuscript was also invaluable," which, like, I was interested by when I opened up the book. And then I decided that I was also going to read that short story. And it's really similar, but it goes a different direction. So basically, Liking What You See, a documentary, is written sort of in the style of World War Z, which is essentially, it reads like a transcript of a documentary. And it's less of a, like, clearly defined plot. Like, a thing does happen over the course of it, but it's less of a clearly defined plot and more of, like, a really expounded upon thought experiment. So basically, it's about, like, we talk about racism and ageism, but we don't talk about lookism. And basically, Liking What You See, a documentary, it deals with beauty, but instead of fixing things through cosmetic surgery, they do this thing where they induce agnosia, which is the loss of ability to identify objects or people. So there's a version of this, there's a type of agnosia that's pretty commonly known where, like, you cannot recognize people's faces. But by creating this procedure where they can, like, induce very specific ones, they invent a type of agnosia called calioagnosia. And essentially, they induce the inability to recognize if people are beautiful or not. And they do this through, a drum roll, reversible brain lesions.
Hey!
Yeah, that's a thing in the book because we didn't talk about it much, but essentially when you become pretty, I think I'll probably
They give you like a little, they give you just like a little bit of a lobotomy.
They give you a little lesion on your brain, but it is reversible because everyone gets it when they get the pretty surgery. And then if they decide that it makes you more docile. And then if they decide that you are going to be in a profession where you need a little bit more mental acuity, they reverse it. So, also, quick aside, Ted Chiang, who wrote Liking What You See, a documentary, upon which this novel, I wouldn't say it's based, but it owes a lot. He also wrote the short story that the movie Arrival was based on.
Hey!
And Liking What You See, a documentary, is going to get its own adaptation, which, who knows, might come out before the UGLIES movie at this juncture. But yeah, so that's what the science thing that I decided to look into is these reversible brain lesions. So in the book, they're a little hazy on what exactly they mean when they say brain lesions, and it was a little hard to parse what Westerfeld was picturing for the lesions in the book because of that. So a big section of this, like maybe the majority, is just going to be me talking about different kinds of lesions and ruling them out. So the first type of lesion that we're going to talk about are abscesses.
And abscesses, about to get nasty then.
It's going to be very brief. I'm keeping it very clinical, Bridget. So abscesses are usually like an infection in the brain. So we're talking inflamed tissue. We're talking, I'm sorry, pus. And usually
tasty.
They'll have, just, pus on the brain. No big deal. Very clinical, like I said. And so when we're talking abscesses, we're definitely talking some kind of inciting injury or invasive surgical procedure. And that's not necessarily inflicted directly to the brain. That can be like sinus, dental, ear, head trauma, anything like that. Injury to the skull can like cause a brain abscess. And for the purposes of like a reversible brain lesion, I mean, there is the fact that you could maybe like just introduce an antibiotic and reverse it largely, but that kind of infection really, really can quickly become lethal and also has like a lot of side effects that we don't see with the reversible brain lesions in the books. So we're going to go ahead and rule out abscesses. Thank fucking God. This next one is, I'm probably going to mess up the name on, so just give me 1 second to take a breath. Arteriovenous malformations. Nailed it. So these, I pretty much I'm going to rule off right off the bat because they usually occur during brain development. So what arteriovenous malformations are is they are tangles in the blood vessels. So like when your blood vessels are forming, they just kind of basically grow naturally in a knot. And that can cause like obstruction of blood to different parts of the vein. And also because of the pressure in the area, there can be blood leakage into the brain, which would, even if it was in like the correct spot on the brain to like obstruct blood flow to the specific area that makes you more inquisitive and active and everything that they're trying to dampen in the society. Blood leakage in the brain can also cause seizures. And because there's nothing like that mentioned, we're just going to say that that doesn't fit the bill. The like pretty lesions don't have additional side effects, and growing blood vessels in the brain to placate the population seems like a lot more trouble than it's worth and would really complicate reversing it for job assignment. So we're just going to go ahead and rule out arteriovenous malformations. And so before we go to the next one, I'm just going to talk really briefly. Something that sort of counts in this vein of brain lesions is multiple sclerosis. I said that wrong. Multiple sclerosis. So we're just going to give a quick little shout out to what that is. So MS is an autoimmune disorder where your body attacks the myelin in your brain and spine. So basically what it does is it strips the wires of your brain so your neural cells can't communicate. And reversal would require the ability to regrow a specific and appropriate brain tissue. And before we address that, we're going to move on to the next one because it basically presents the same problem, which is cerebral infarction, which is just straight up tissue death. It's death of brain cells from damage or lack of oxygen. So like this is stroke territory. This is also like cerebral palsy adjacent. Like if the brain is deprived of necessary oxygen nutrients, that area will die. And so mixing both of these together, inducing cerebral infarction and or a like very specific destructive immune response to a specific area of the brain really feels beyond the capacity of certainly the technology of this culture, let alone our own. So like if they were stimulating in the book bone growth to rearrange facial features during the like prettifying process, I would say maybe within the books this could be what they're doing. It's just like literally just like cigarette burn on the brain. But I just don't buy that they've cracked the code on human stem cells to this specific of a degree, because if they had, like, the cosmetic plastic putty wouldn't be a thing. And there's also the whole problem of like people in this culture don't know about the specials, but they do know that there are people for whom the pretty process just like doesn't work. Like there are totally people who, for whatever reason, it just doesn't stick. So that leaves us with the final type of brain lesion that Scott Westerfeld actually directly mentions in the dialogue, which is tumors. So cancer can create lesions on the brain through the development of tumors, which even when naturally occurring can continue to grow or remain stable. And, you know, with our modern technology, we already have methods of shrinking brain tumors to various degrees of effectiveness. And we know that in the books, they already have this cosmetic putty that's applied to the body, but that can be manipulated externally via like chemicals to grow or shift or disappear. So within the book, I think it's probably most likely that these are artificially induced tumors, or some sort of implant that is made out of a related material to the cosmetic putty. But in real life, so like within the book, absolutely, I think like that is my operating theory, is that they are artificial tumors. In real life, scientists in 2010 like designed in a computer and had manufactured a completely synthetic cell. And when I say completely synthetic cell, I mean, in this article that I read, they said specifically that, like, encoded in the tail end of the DNA are their names and email addresses.
Ugh, nerds.
Yeah, right? Like, A, nerds. B, what the fuck even is DNA sometimes? You know what I mean? But so what they did is they harvested DNA from like a super, super simple bacteria, just like a really basic one that had a very short DNA code to begin with. They introduced it to this like, they implanted it inside this like yeast environment and let the yeast grow. Then they extracted the DNA in a gel and like put it into like the same environment as these other bacterial cells. And like when they would take them on via like I think osmosis is what ended up happening. They like were taken on board these cells, and then when the cells divided, they started dividing into these super small, basic, completely synthesized cells. So these scientists just invented a type of material that they got yeast and bacteria to grow for them. And basically what they're hoping that they can do with synthetic cells is they're hoping that they can manufacture large amounts of like vaccines and things like that. They're hoping it's like a new form of pharmaceutical manufacturing. But I think that it is possible. And I think that you would also kind of run into like a Monsanto situation with this, which I'll like go into a little bit in a second. But you could design a very basic cell to grow to a very specific size, or just create a little bit of that material and implant it as is, and then have a type of cell that is designed to like a type of bacteria that's designed to eat that other one. And you would have a little tumor that you could put in the brain that if you introduce this other chemical would dissolve. And I think that, like, we've already done a type of procedure that we know the type of, like, the part of the brain that is impacted that, like, creates a more childlike, docile personality is the same part of the brain where people did, you know, lobotomies back in the day. And so I think I would say that, like, if that is what's going on in the book, that it is... It's possible. So in terms of could it happen? Hey, it could happen. I will also say that I don't think that it would be as like neat and clean as is described in the book. But I think that there are definitely ways that like we have the foundational technology to create synthetic lesions in the brain that we would have the potential to reverse. I think like lobotomies, people would have like more extreme reactions to it than like the uniform reaction that's seen in the book, because I don't know that I'm ever going to say like, yeah, it could totally happen in terms of human beings totally figuring out the brain. But in terms of like, let's put in a lesion, let's delete the lesion, I think that we could do that. So that is the science section of this podcast. Thank you very much, Bridget. I said a lot of very big words, which makes me sound very learned.
So learned.
So, Bridget.
Yeah?
Who's the sweetie pie who's doing a good job?
So, this one, I think it's the you're doing amazing, sweetie. For me this week is you're doing amazing because you are competent.
Mm-hmm.
You have a set of moral values.
Uh-huh.
You stick to your guns.
Mm.
And you care about your kid. It's Maddie!
Yay!
Maddie is my sweetie of the week. She She's great. She's a doctor who kicks ass and takes names. Who is willing to go against the system. I particularly appreciate the fact that, like, her and Az, not only are they like, oh, we can't force the medicine that gets rid of the potentially could get rid of the lesion, could also potentially make Shay brain dead. We can't force her to take it because we made a Hippocratic oath. We found a book about it. So they sought out the Hippocratic oath. They were like,
Yeah.
No one's obligated to do that in this crazy future world. And they were like, no, we are.
Yeah.
They held a private, beautiful ceremony with the two of them where they said a very lengthy oath.
This is an extremely good choice, Bridget, and also not one that I would have anticipated.
She also does, I appreciate, so there's a part when Tally comes clean to David about about the fact that she's a spy, and she thanks Maddie for not telling him, for letting Tally tell David, and Maddie's like, oh, he needed you these last 2 weeks, and it's like, oh, so smart, what a mom.
Also, like, so I think that Maddie is a lot more like self-possessed and
she's extremely pragmatic.
Yeah.
Her husband dies and she's like, let's go, let's get out of here. I will deal with this later.
Yeah. And I think that, like, we've had a run of maybe choosing sweetie pies who are a little more like damsel-y or like just like little marshmallows. You know what I mean? And I appreciate,
I would say, idiot babies.
There have been some idiot babies. There have been some sort of savant-like babies, let's say. I don't think that Lacey from the program is in any way savant-like. I think she's definitely an idiot baby. But we've had some, like, pretty, like, helpless ones. And I really like that, like, she has the competence and skill set and moral backbone of a hero, but she also has this, like, very pure desire to do good, which you usually in, especially fiction for teens, I think, is kind of reserved for, like, the gentler characters. But yeah, she's just, like, a basically good person, and it is eminently fair, just, like, a completely on board sense of justice.
Yeah, Maddie is definitely my sweetie of the book. You're doing amazing, sweetie. Whoa, watch out with that knife.
Yeah.
I do particularly love the part where she just, like, rips off the piece of her jumpsuit and is like, everyone give me your jumpsuits. Here, throw this over a river somewhere.
God, she's cool.
She's so cool. I really hope she comes back in Pretties and she continues to kick ass and take names. And if she goes down in that book, I hope she takes a lot of people with her.
Also, like, very rare, I think, to see such a dynamic mother character. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is a woman in her 40s who is, like, being hit by age and is also, like, gonna suplex you into the ground and say, I'm sorry, I have to do this.
Yeah, and, like, also, like, she's this rare character where she's not maligned for being a leader before being a mother. You know what I mean? And she's, like, a good mom. She's, like, a very good mom.
She's an extremely good mom.
But she's also just, like, such a good leader, but she's not the kind of, because usually when there's, like, a woman in any sort of position of power, especially in a teen book, I'm just gonna say it, like, it tends to be, like, the things I had to do to get here. But her leadership is entirely based on, like, opting out of ruthlessness. And so, like, the fact that she has an agenda and she has very strong political views, but she does not enforce them on anyone or punish anyone for, like, not being, like, not performing those values at the same standard that she does, is, like, so incredible and so unique and such a like refreshing thing to read. Good job, Scott Westerfeld, you know?
Good job for creating a good mom.
What a fucking sweetie.
So we're going to hit up pretties at some point in the future.
Totally.
I'll tell you, from the first chapter that they include in this one, it's going to be a wild ride with a lot of alcohol. Mm-hmm. Everyone's always hungover.
Good to know.
And they're always going to parties. That's like it. They're just hungover, and then they immediately just go into party mode. It's like post-finals week for me in college. It's just party, wake up, party some more, wake up, party some more. I have a lot of it's because everyone's leaving, so everyone's like one last party before the year's over. But then also throughout college, some of my friends all had birthdays during the winter break, so there would just be like a giant party for like it's like 5 people's birthday. Whew.
Jiminy.
Yeah.
God, I sounded like a character from like a 1920s nickel comic.
Jiminy.
Oh, Jiminy. Seems like a lot of the demon liquor, Bridget.
Oh, boy.
No. I better go to church. Do you have any shoes I can shine? Jiminy.
Jesus.
Okay, so I don't know if that segue was going to be super smooth. Bridget and I just paused the recording for a second. The reason Bridget and I had to pause for a second is because next episode is kind of like going to be an interesting special structure because we're doing a twofer. We're going to do H.G. Wells' Time Machine in conjunction with Johanna Sinisalo's The Core of the Sun, because it's sort of based on a Eloise and Morlock's structure, and it might be an interesting one. It might end up being a 2-parter. Who fucking knows? But we wanted to do like a special experiment one, and also just get a couple more, like just one more book by a lady that isn't Stephanie Meyer involved here. And this one looked really, really good. Also, we were looking for a book we would be interested in doing, and we literally found it both at the same time. Which
it was wacky, guys. You had to be delightful. There.
Like, technically we were recording when it happened, but I'm not gonna put it in because it would be bad radio. But like the feeling of it was so cool.
Also, heads up, I fucking love The Time Machine, so I'm very interested to read this book that is kind of time machine inspired / adjacent.
Straight up, never read The Time Machine.
Oh, I love The Time Machine book. I love the movie. I grew up, one of the chaplains my dad worked with when I was a babe gave us this huge tome of H.G. Wells stories when I was like 8 or 9. Mm-hmm. And that is mwah. So I've read like The Food of the Gods and I Love Dr. Moreau and Time Machine, which I loved the movie. I rented that movie from the library all the time.
Are you talking about like I know that there was a more recent movie, but there was also a very old black and white one, if I'm not mistaken.
This is the one that's from like the 60s. It's color. Cool. This is the one where it's famous because you can see the zippers on the back of the Morlock suits. Still found them terrifying. Hey, still found them terrifying as a child.
I'm sure.
I don't see a zipper. I just see a Yeti monster that's chewing on bones.
Cool. So that's what we're gonna be doing. Double feature of The Time Machine and The Core of the Sun. We'll see how that ends up being structured. But we're really excited about it, and we hope you are too. So we'll see you next. Or wait, yeah, we'll see you next time.
We're not gonna see you next time. It's gonna be 2 different people.
Sorry, ironically, I was thinking about the next episode, which is going to come out, which is the one that we recorded before we recorded this one. So I was like, no, the next one's going to be about Minority Report. And so, ironically, I got confused about the passage of time in announcing the episode for the Time Machine.
And also back
announcing
now. Minority Report, a movie about time. We're in a little time sandwich. We're in a
little time Sammy.
Little time Sammy.
Little Monte Carlo time Sam.
Ooh.
Anyway,
God, now
have a wonderful.
You son of a bitch. the worst sandwich to eat for a person.
Yeah, look, it will appreciably aid in your eventual death, but it's worth it for the ham, jam, and cream cheese. On that note, cherish all you good listeners. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Could Be Worse. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing our podcast on Stitcher, Google Play, or the iTunes Store, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can check out our website at couldbeworsepod.com, follow the podcast on Twitter or Facebook with the handle @couldbeworsepod, and check out more from your humble and loving hosts on Twitter and Instagram at the handles @magnesiumqueen for Bridget and @Caitlin for me. Hi, I'm Caitlin Obum. What's going on? I talk on the podcast. Also, if you'd be interested in seeing some live work by yours truly, I have a show going up at the Pocket Theater in Seattle on March 24th and 31st as part of my sketch group Drop the Root Beer and Run. It's a really fun sketch comedy western called Spittoon Shine that we've been working on for a bit. You can check out showtimes and get tickets at www.thepocket.org if that's a thing that sounds fun to you. I promise there are goofs and laughs to be had. So thank you for listening, and we will see you soon with H.G. Wells' The Time Machine and The Core of the Sun by Johanna Sinisalo.